Have over 20 years experience in product, strategic and field and communication marketing in the medtech, fintech and payment industries. And prior to Worldline's acquisition, I spent over 11 years, in working in payments at Ingenico. So I have a few years of experience within payment. And as you can hear, I'm based in France.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so very experienced indeed. Well, we're very happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. So today we're going to be talking about all things vending. I suppose, forgive me, I think we're all probably at saturation point with the pandemic conversation by this point. But I think it's important to set the scene with just talking about how the pandemic influenced the vending market over the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, the change that no one expected came with the pandemic, as you mentioned. But definitely it accelerated the transformation of different markets, and vending is one of these markets. And it forced many companies to rethink their operations, adapt to actually the new way consumers were behaving. And for traditional vending, that's definitely been impacted by the limited number of employees in offices, and with home office becoming the new norm. As we can see today, we don't have the chance to meet each other, but we're doing this interview through video. So indeed, due to this, there has been a dramatic impact on the activities during the pandemic for vending operators. Whereas the market was pretty dynamic actually before COVID. And indeed, yeah, we noticed around 33% of down of vans in the vending industry in 2020. This is what is reported by the European Vending Association. But now the good thing is that those times are over, and we will see also that there are plenty of new opportunities coming up now, but definitely with changes. And maybe going back to your question, how it influenced the vending industry, well, definitely the good thing with the pandemic is that it has fueled the self-service culture in Europe. So indeed, we had less coffee at the office, but now we are going back to the office more frequently, and for sure, our culture of self-service is now there and it's expanding. And definitely that will have an impact on the industry. I could, of course, then come back to touchless commerce and contactless payment. I think this is something you already addressed in different articles, and that we hear in the industry and also in other industries, by the way. But now we are, as consumers, becoming more and more sensitive to touchless commerce. We are willing to reduce the number of interactions with humans, even if we enjoy going back to a social life. Indeed, people are less tend to touch each other, kiss each other. You know, I'm based in France, we are Latin here, but definitely the way we behave in society evolved. And definitely even interactions with machines has been impacted. So as a consequence, consumers massively adopted contactless payments during this COVID period. There has been a significant growth in the last 2 years. It has been also helped by the increase, of thresholds for contactless payments. And you in the UK, you have been indeed quite active and early in this process of increasing the number of the thresholds of contactless transactions. But now, if we look overall in Europe, indeed, these thresholds have been modified and increased. Cashless is now the norm, and it's here to stay. There's no doubt on this. And if we look at the vending machines today, well, overall in Europe, we reached 64% of machines that have migrated and that are equipped with cashless solutions. This is what the EVA is reporting. And indeed, in the UK, it's even higher, more around 70%.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're early adopters. And indeed, that there are still machines to be upgraded in the field. So we'll come back on this, but definitely, yeah, touchless commerce and cashless is the new norm and the standard.
Thank you. One thing I just sort of caveating off of the back of this concept of changing consumer behavior, naturally the pandemic has been one of the biggest kind of influences on a change in that behavior. But is it all just to do with the pandemic, or is it just that, you know, we're all living a very fast paced kind of lifestyle, and things like touchless and this concept of seamless experiences, which I know that Worldline is very, very hot on. Can you talk us through a little bit more about that in terms of lifestyle and what that means for the way that you're evolving your own approaches to business?
Yeah. Well, definitely, indeed, the pandemic accelerated the adoption. And in many countries, especially in South Europe, this pandemic has been a massive accelerator. But beyond this, you're right, there are also usages that were already emerging. We can also think about mobile payment, of course, digital wallets, QR code payment with different alternative payment methods, all these wallets like Amazon Pay, Google Pay, etc. But definitely it has been really massively accelerated with the pandemic. You know, we stayed at home. Digital commerce was the only way to do commerce. Digital platforms was the only way to interact with your friends, your family, with your doctor. Yeah. So indeed, now these new trends are now part of the new way consumers behave, and as you mentioned, now it's part of our life. I have my smartphone here. Just will hide the brand, but indeed I do so many things every day on this smartphone, and we have to. I'm paying my nanny through my smartphone. Ordering food. In London, you go into the tube with your smartphone. So indeed, beyond contactless payment and cashless adoption, it's the way we behave as consumers that have evolved. And definitely, we use different channels. And this digital transformation has been massively accelerated in the last 2 years. You know, most of the time, the technology changes and evolutions are really appearing and developing during tough periods of time, and this is what happened here in this case.
Yeah, well, that leads me on actually to my next question, really, because we're talking about trends and we're talking about evolution in behavior. One of the big trends that's kind of in the media constantly now, and there's a lot of pressure on organizations to make sure that they're doing things in a certain way themselves. It's all about sustainability. So how can vending as a market become more sustainable, environmentally friendly, just to kind of drive that long-term recovery and success, I suppose?
Yeah, you're right. There are evolutions with different regulations in Europe and also in the UK coming into force now, and forcing operators and industry players to reduce their impact on the environment. Basically, primarily for the office and coffee services industry, the OCS industry, it will reflect it will be translated in the use of less single-use beverage cups, with the prohibition of plastic stirrers, with also markings that have to be added to your cups if they are made of plastic. And of course, well, the regulations most of the time took into consideration the impact on industry players, meaning that if you had previous inventory of plastic cups, you can still use them as long as you don't reorder after a certain time, depending on the regulation you have to follow locally. So that definitely, well, that's also a way to transform the way we tackle these challenges. And the good thing is that for the OCS business, you're in closed environment, in workplaces, where most of the time employees now have their own cups or bottle. So of course, there's an impact for industry players to reconsider the user journey, the interaction at the machine. but I think it's for the good of all of us, and these are things that are achievable. That's even if, of course, this is a challenge. It's part of this transformation that has to be taken into consideration, and that's a must-have actually in the industry. Of course, as manufacturers of kiosk or manufacturers of payment solutions, energy consumption is also something to be taken into consideration. So there are different initiatives, different also regulations coming up. So all the manufacturers in the industry have now also to think about how do we limit the energy consumption? How do we have like wake up mode on equipment to save energy, or use solar energy, for instance, to limit the consumption. And finally, of course, there are the new technologies coming up, like artificial intelligence, for instance, cloud-based solutions that could help to manage your fleet remotely, maybe have a better control on the on-site interventions you can plan. So avoid all these interventions on a daily or twice a week base in the field to check your machines. So these are new functionalities to be taken into consideration by industry players, but it will help them also to reduce to optimize their operations, reduce the number of intervention in the field, and having also remote control on the machine, on its maintenance, on the inventory in the machine, are also opportunities.
Well, thank you very much, Caroline, for joining us. I think we can leave it there in that case.